Hello and welcome back to the Bracket Life broadcast with Brandon, and as always, arguably the most winningest guy in a white roadster with Rat Attack on the side of it anywhere. Andrew Stark.
You were getting me worried there. You were getting vague and then went specific. I felt better because that was some big comment maybe coming there. So
yeah. No, I thought about that a couple hours ago, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna hit him with this," and he's gonna like that.
yeah,
So
it was worried there. I was like, oh my God, what are you going to put me in a position here on, right? Like winningest what now? Oh, okay.
yeah,
We're good.
yeah,
We're good.
yeah.
So
So there you go. I didn't want it to get compromised. I was going to go with a Corvette Roadster in like Ontario and go back, and then it would have went sideways,
yeah.
right?
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah.
We would
So I
have been
had to
fact
get
checked and I'm sure we would have been wrong because I wouldn't want to go that far myself. So
yeah. um, well, this is exciting. This is episode 28. I'm not sure if everybody's been paying attention for the whole time of it, but the Brack Life broadcast is a year old. Now we are a year and 10 days old. January 18th was our first show. Obviously, we did not do one last week. We did talk about doing one from Mexico. Didn't work out. We had dinner reservations. You know how it goes, right? So we missed that one. Back here this week to talk about everything. And yeah, that's what I was thinking about it also. Like,
yeah.
we've been doing this for a full year.
it's unreal to think about, right? Because it's gone by so fast. I mean, that's
Yeah.
we joked about how fast the race season went by, but a year of doing the show has gone by insanely quick. I remember the conversations that you and I were having prior to doing the show, just about the idea of doing it, and they feel
Yeah.
like they were just yesterday still. So it's been fun, and we
Yeah.
appreciate everyone joining us on this journey through
Yes.
this.
Absolutely. It's been cool. It's neat to see how things have changed, right?
Yeah.
How everything's kind of where it started and where it is now, and the kind of shows we're doing, even like the YouTube channel before this,
Yeah.
from where it really started from. So it's really neat. So yeah, it's been cool. I wanted to take a minute and think about that because it's neat. So we'll jump in Canadian countdown. Not a whole lot of action, obviously. Starting to get ready to get wound up here. I know the NH season starts next month,
Yep.
or I guess 2 months. No, it's not till March now because they started
Yeah,
the Gators.
that's right.
So NH starting, lots of schedules coming out. I know a lot of guys on Facebook that are in the South are getting ready to go, and then potentially we got some Canadian racers headed down, to start seeing some action.
Yeah, a couple actually already down there. My buddy Kevin Stittle, hanging out in Florida for another winter, was just sending me some numbers from Bradenton Motorsports Park because they run points programs down there, like 10,000 to win.
Yeah.
Forgive me, my tea is just rolling in the door here from assistant Jessica. Thank you very much. We put a call out and it came in. So, but yeah, Kevin was showing me some numbers because you can get to the Bradenton racing app, right? You can watch all the racing through there. And so he sent me a bunch of card numbers that you can put in and follow. And like you're watching like Troy Williams Jr. Down there racing weekly races. So a few guys out and about having some fun.
Yeah. No, that's all good. So we got a decent show on. I think it's going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to start. We missed it. Well, I don't know if we actually missed it. We talked about it ourselves. We just never really brought it up on here. It's a lot of information going on. So the Canadian Drag Racing Hall of Fame had their induction ceremony. I want to say it's got to be 2 or 3 months ago now.
I think it was it was back in the fall of 2022, but the official announcements I guess online and for the world to see have kind of been slowly coming out. So there was some local to you, local to me, and just but big names that we're taking in. So I thought we'd take a minute and go through that because there's an honor to getting into any Hall of Fame and having a career. In particular, some of the names that made it there, like a good friend of ours, Bill Richards. Right, Bill's he went in, I believe, under I want to say it was like historian count because of the work he does with Rob Potter on going through a lot of the video and notes and documenting the history of like Cayuga and some of the Western Ontario racing. Bill and Rob do a great job with keeping a lot of that history alive and bringing pictures and our information and news, like, or not news but stories from that era through that, like, can get lost in time, and they've got archives that are just incredible and a knowledge base that It's uncanny. But our buddy Bill got in. Arnie Malcolm, Big Arn,
Yes.
out in Luskville, got inducted. 40 years at Luskville. It's gotta be
Yeah.
more,
Over 40 now.
over 40 now, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I gotta say that's probably the longest running like track operator
Gotta
in
be.
Ontario, or well, sorry, Canada. I'll go backwards. And maybe it's a big statement, but I can't think of many other um, privately run tracks in North America that someone can say like they've run it for 40 years continuously. Like there'd
Yeah,
be
just
very few,
one, absolutely just one
right?
single person, right? So it's,
Yeah.
you know, it absolutely is a feat. And then how much the racing would have changed over that, right? And the racer themselves, right?
A
From
lot of
what it was
eras.
just, 20 years ago, let alone 40 years ago. So how much it's different now. And then this year, we're showing up in Lustfield to race for, six, $10,000 races
Yeah.
in what, 9 days or something like that. Like, so
Yeah.
it's just, it's a wild change
Yeah.
how it's all progressed and got to this point. So absolutely, many people have talked about Arnie, how he wasn't in earlier than this. So
Yep.
awesome that he was finally able to, be inducted into the Canadian Drag Racing Hall of Fame.
Yeah. It's well deserved, I think, right? Because how many people do anything for 40 years and haven't done something to make that segment, that industry better? And
Hmm.
and Arnie certainly deserves that. And I'll say deservingly. So out my way, the Fletcher family, Dan Fletcher. So the other Fletcher, because there's the U.S. Fletcher.
Hmm.
But Dan and John was Fletcher brothers, but the Fletcher family ran multiple tracks out this way: St. Thomas and Cayuga first, and then later St. Thomas. They were most notable for our bringing John Force to Canada. So, in a sense, like they did a lot of match racing at St. Thomas through that early to mid '90s, and that was during the Fletcher era at St. Thomas. They had John Forrest, they had Tony Petragon, Chuck Etchells. I know I'm going to miss names, which I feel bad, but like that was their era. They had when they were at Cayuga, the WCS, the Winston Championship Series, right? Divisionals. I mean, you can go to Bill and Rob's page and hear about all the crazy years of the Winston Championship Series throughout it. But some of the most epic one, like the later generation of it, point series size, that was under the Fletcher era. They ran a lot of successful events and two tracks and very deserving to get in. They ran comp cars as well through it. Like they were racers on top of being track operators, and highly deserving to get in there as well. And Charlie Kanopik, another like long time racer, NHRA racer, IHRA racer, Super Series like 990, 890, getting in as well. He's a great career, right? As an index racer. I know I don't know much about his early years per se because I've never had a chance to talk to Charlie in depth about that. But I mean,
Hmm.
had finished number 3 in the world. Like he had a single digit on that car. The travesty was that happened shortly before
Yeah,
COVID.
just before the COVID, so he wasn't able to come back and kind of
Yeah,
defend that the same year that he did win Division One.
yeah, he was a Jigs All Star, or supposed to be a Jigs All Star,
Yeah,
right? So I mean, that was that was tough to see that he wasn't able to go participate in that because there's nothing more prideful than seeing Canadian car with a Canadian flag on it heading down to beat up. But great to see that he got in. So I know there's more names, and we've probably missed some. These were some of the ones we picked up that were kind of local to us, and that we knew in personal manners too, right? So we want to
yeah,
highlight them because I think it's very deserving in all those cases. So um,
absolutely. And then for guys like that are on this list as a whole for the whole
yeah,
thing, I know like Charlie stands out for one. Um, Charlie's not done, you
no,
know, and
no,
like very similar with Arnie, right? There's still time left
yeah,
on in their career with what they're doing. So it's not like they're in the Hall of Fame now, they're done, this is what they've done and this is it. Like they're going to add to this list,
oh yeah,
keep going, especially Charlie on the racetrack with things that he can do
yep,
and keep doing.
yep,
He's always getting better, always working on his stuff. I've had awesome conversations with Charlie many times, about the
Yep.
strategy and things like that with the 90 racing. I'd love to try it. I'd love to get in there and go, try 90 racing with Charlie. He's offered that many times. One
Yep.
day I will take him up on it and we'll go racing together. So, but
Yep.
yeah, there's a lot more going on. So,
Yeah. Even Bill,
I'm
I'll
curious.
go as far as saying Bill,
Absolutely.
like he's announces, like for those who know, like so our friend Bill. I mean, he's the local announcer. In the sense he runs a Cayuga. He's booked in at all the super stock events because his knowledge base on that is just insane. It's actually the '69 Camaro that we have is Bill's car. Bill and Stacy's as his wife, and I get the privilege of driving it once we get a few more things figured out on it. He could get back in here under a second column as announcer with some more years under the belt, I think,
Yeah.
right? In all honesty, but yeah, none of these folks are done by any capacity. Even the Fletchers, I mean, they're still out there running around with a factory stock style Mustang, running the Can-Am. I haven't seen them at any of like the NHRA levels NHRA. Yeah, I'm having trouble here tonight.
Get it all crossed up.
Oh, buddy, it's awful type stuff. But like all these folks are still out there. They're all in racing in some manner
Yeah,
still, right? So, but congratulations to all of them because that was great to see.
absolutely. So there's a lot going on. As much as we said there wasn't a whole lot of current racing happening, a lot of tracks, I would venture to say most have their
Yeah.
schedules posted for
Yep.
2023 out there. I want to say there's got to be, what do we think on this, like 15, 20 tracks that we
Eh,
have listed here that are going on a master schedule we are making. We've done it the last 2 or 3 years since we started Bracket Life. Rachel and I have been making a master schedule of everybody across the country. Every event we could find, we're highlighting it, putting it up there. So
it was an
be sure
impressive list last year. Like, how many events did you have when you across Canada?
we
Like,
had to be close to 150,
yeah,
if not more. I can't remember. It was wild, but like the number of events, and then how great the events were.
yeah,
Right, what we were doing. It wasn't like just a bunch of little whatever races. Like we had some awesome racing from coast to coast, really,
yep,
which was really cool. So I'm excited to see that and put it back together again. See kind of what new events are coming,
yep.
and kind of how that all works out, because it's always you know juggling match trying to fit into the schedule, right? And then trying to decide a schedule for yourself where you want to go. So
This
that's
is
something I've seen. What's that?
I was gonna say this is probably going to be the hardest years for looking at scheduling that I've had for a long time, just because the amount of good events, quality races there is
Hmm.
from in Canada, right? And I mean, that doesn't constitute the U.S. events that we kind of would look at too.
That
You
are
go
also,
racing,
yeah,
yeah, you add them to the fold. I mean, there's a schedule from early May right till October, and would never have to leave Ontario. Like, Luskville is just over the border, so I'm just going to lump that
yeah,
in. Every Quebec
that's
racer
right.
probably just their blood pressure just went up as I said that. But
Yeah, yeah,
right, like it's unreal. And you look at it Canada wide, it's nuts how much racing, even out west. Right, go through all the tracks and within like that 8 hour tow, which is localish, I guess, if you're in the west, because
yeah.
it's a pretty sprawling community, right? But yeah, this will be one of those years where I think there won't be a lack of options for everyone in a lot of sense across Canada because it's a busy looking year.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It's gonna be big. So we wanted to highlight a couple of them. Obviously, the classics bracket races. Travis Ringeth, he comes on here all the time. Just put out his email list. Get signed up on that. Go to the page, the Facebook page, the classics bracket races. That's where he's got all those info coming up. Uh, and then, obviously, like I said, sign up for the newsletter or the email list, whatever it is that you want to call it. Rolling through what other series we got. Big one coming back, not directly in Canada, that we wanted to highlight, that we think has significant impact on the type of racing going on in our area. PMRA, Quick 32, and then what's
Pro
this
bike
bike sled?
sled.
Pro bike sled.
Yeah.
Returns mainly, or I guess all, at Empire
Yeah.
Dragway. So just across the border, just in New York there. I think this is great for Canadian drag racing for one. Hopefully we can. I'm not sure what all the inner workings are with all that, with getting it back in Canada, in
Yep.
Ontario, whether that is Grand Bend, Cayuga, or both. But like that would be excellent for the sport as a whole. I believe, like when we did this for 10, 15 years ago, give or take, really in the prime
Yeah.
of top sportsman, top dragster, pro mod racing, it was huge,
Yeah.
right? They had a great series going on, and like it was a great step for people if you wanted to step into that next level of racing. I'm not sure that's the right word for it, but
Well,
like you
and
know what I'm saying, like the
yeah.
next for your equipment.
Yep. It was a great place to go prove yourself and figure it out. I mean, when the IHRA, because I was potentially lined up when the IHRA was gigantic, right? In its heyday. And, there was, and it wasn't uncommon to see some of those local IHRA guys from the Michigan area and New York, make the trek over to the border to come race at some of the PMRA Quick 32 events. So, I mean, and I remember that we had friends of ours, the Himbest, who ran in it, and, Mike would head to an event and we'd grab all the bracket cars and follow because it really was a spectacle. It was really fun to watch. It was great racing. They were well connected in the sense of marketing. Like you knew what was going on. You could tell. You could follow the stories. So neat to see, right? Like it's been quite a few years since they went dormant. It's one event. It's at New York, but I mean everything starts somewhere, and evidently.
Yep.
It's a partnership with the Northeast Pro Mod Association. They had an event last year they kind of partnered up on, but this looks like the Quick 32 Pro Bike Sled is that's a new part to it. But neat to see, right? I mean, that would get the rumor mill working on what that all means in the bigger picture for maybe more of 2023. I mean, it's still only January 24th, right? So there's all intents and purposes 5 more months of silly season to go before we're actually on track with stuff. So a lot can change, but
it's not
it's
nice
neat
when
to
you
see.
say it like that, Andrew.
I
That
know it's
whole
hard,
5 months
but
wasn't very nice. It
you
just
gotta
hurtful.
you gotta just deal with it sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Rip the Band-Aid
No,
off type of scenario.
I hear you. I hear you.
Some neat races for some of our local tracks. Talking, we'd say local like Cayuga, Grand Bend, St. Thomas. RCSS has their schedule out. They've got quite a few of their Wally events, like NHRA events back. They've got Grand Bend has got their schedule back up. The 23rd annual Canadian Nationals are back. It's one of the longest running ones. I guess be alongside Edmonton, right, for their national event. The 24th annual Windsor Weekend, which Chuck Fram, Shannonville, that's his event at Grand Bend. So they're back running at Grand Bend. Shannonville's got their schedule out with some neat like no box bonus weekends, high roller weekends. Chuck's is an aggressive looking season, right, for what they're going to do. I saw the post today looking for some, I guess, full-time staff. If in the racing world, 5 weekends and 5 staff would that'd be a full-time gig, right?
Yeah.
They just signed with the WDRA, which is, I want to say that's a big move for the racers through. I don't know what to call Shannonville. I don't want to call it Eastern Ontario, but I guess is it Eastern? I always feel bad. It's in the middle, right?
It's right in the middle. Right?
Central.
So, I like that.
Yeah, I didn't want to classify people in the wrong spot.
Yeah. People can debate whatever they want to call it, but I like Central because it's not necessarily like closer to any one, right? Still, from Shannonville is you're 3 hours to Louisville, you're 4 hours, 5 hours to Grand Bend and Cayuga.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, so that works with the Central Ontario folk. Like this gives them a shot at going to a WDRA World Championship event, right? You win points. I believe that's how the structure works, or go to the bracket finals. Like that's another access. So big. I like that. I think it should be fun. I think it's great for the folks in Shannonville, like the racers at Shannonville, to have access to that for a first time. Speaking of bracket finals, the Ontario bracket finals, they're back again. That'll be year 4, I think. I'm trying to think. 2020, I think was the first year. Heading to St. Thomas. So now Grand Bend's hosted, Cayuga's hosted, and St. Thomas will have their crack at hosting the Ontario bracket finals. Based on the schedule I'm seeing, I think it doesn't conflict with anything, unlike last year's event for us, because we went to.
You were in Luskville.
Luskville, that's what it was.
That was for the Super Tour in October.
That's right. So bracket finals at St. Thomas should be fun. It will be tight, but get to know your neighbor, right?
Absolutely.
It's going to be a fun weekend there. So that was the highlights from some of the tracks in my neck of the woods. ONDR schedules out, ADRA out East Coast. They've got all their scheduling out.
Yeah, a lot of stuff like that. ADRA,
Yep.
obviously, you just said Miramichi,
Yep.
um, Flip It Over, Medicine Hat, they're set up.
Yep.
For myself, where we will be most of the year, as kind of recently, Luxfield, the Canadian Bracket Super Tour, set up coming back to Naperville for the first time in 3 or 4 years, 5 years maybe.
Yeah.
Like, if somebody's watching, they'll throw it out there. I was talking to Jerome earlier. Actually, he would know offhand.
Yep.
That'll be great. I'm excited for a bigger race like that to come to Naperville. I always love going there. Right, a lot of fun. Track's
Haven't been
always
yet.
really good.
Super
It's
excited to go.
it's good. It's not too big. It's not like this unbelievable place you're gonna roll into, but it's a good racetrack and it's a lot of good racing. So
Yep. And they start and end the year there, I think, right? That's they
yep.
basically bookshelf the Super Tour, right?
Yes, exactly. So that'll be good. So that I'm really excited for. And then, along with some other mix in here and there, that's what my schedule is going to look like. So we're going to do that. We'll go through, we'll make a schedule kind of. I don't know if that's a good idea or a bad idea. Do it live because then you kind of, you seal yourself to it. But
I have that secret document. It's labeled confidential on my laptop just from those concerns, but
yeah. And we'll see. But yeah, so it'll be cool. It's going to be an action-packed year. I'm excited to hit the results. Now we have a lot going on, type of results. I'm going to throw in a plug for next week. Hopefully everything's good for that. Next week we'll do the top 25 list. I know we've talked about it on here before.
So you glossed through that a little bit. The key part to that discussion is we're back on the air next week.
Yes.
We took the extra week off. This is somewhat out of sequence for us this week, but we couldn't not do it this week. We couldn't go this long without getting back on here, but we are back next week for what would be normally scheduled show. So we're going to do back to back after taking a couple weeks off. So we're making up for it. Yep.
Exactly. So that's going to be really cool. I'm really excited for that one. That's going to be, like I said, the top 25 list. It's I've been busy trying to
working on this,
sort this out for I've been trying to find the top 25 in as best order as we possibly can make it. You do what you can for it. But top 25 racers in Canada, mainly focused on bracket racers, class racers, sportsman racers in general. Not a whole, we don't have, heads up guys or anything like that on there just because that's different.
That's a harder list to come up with in some sense.
Exactly.
But
exactly. So we've been working with that. We've been working right coast to coast with guys. So I have about 16 or 18 panelists, I've been calling them, giving me their lists, and then we kind of been working through it and sifting through. So, I hope that you guys all really, tune in for that and really enjoy that one. I think it's been really cool to talk about. And then I'm going to have a post here. I'll figure out if they let me do a poll on my personal page, it'd be easier for it, but we'll figure it out. I want to hear from everybody listening and everybody on social media who they think the best is.
Yep. When we touched on this in the last episode, I mean, the chat board kind of lit up with a whole bunch of names fast, right? And it's everyone's got their guy, right? So, or guys,
exactly.
Girls,
absolutely. So I'm really excited for that one. Like I said, so next week, I know this is mid-show. We're kind of got off topic. It kind of popped in my head when we talked about reading the results for this. I'm like, oh yeah, I get to talk about some really cool stuff in a week. So just a little thing that I'm excited about. So we'll jump in, Andrew. I think we'll hit the tech talk here.
Yep.
You obviously have a lot more structured tech stuff going on than what I do. I have a lot of stuff going on. Just I feel like yours might be a little more structured than mine.
Well, we've years and years and years. Dad and I've always kind of tried to have a structured approach to our off season and what we're going to do. We've always tried to alternate engine programs. So if one car is down, the other car's motor is fresh from last year. And boy, like I don't know what we did to get to this. I want to say predicament, but it's January, and I'm looking at it going, that 5 months I just talked about that sounded mean. I don't know if it's long enough for what I feel like we've got left to do, but we've got a dyno coming, engine dyno, and I mean every day we've got another list of items that we kind of want to try and check, and I just bought another throttle stop to test on the dyno from Francois Roberge in Quebec, a Stinnett stop, which is basically a number one stop with some Gary Stinnett magic thrown into it. I guess let's put it that way. That I'm looking to throw onto, I don't know which motor, because that brings us the next part. Is I've got two motors to throw on there. One we're building for the Vet, which is a slightly bigger version of what the one I have in it. We have another motor for the Mustang we're putting together. I'm over pump gas. There isn't enough consistency I'm finding in the fuel. I mean, I'm not saying that's in general. There's lots of people out there using it. I'm at that point. I've seen issues with it, so we built a high compression motor. Same motors I have in it. It's almost identical, other than instead of 10.5 to 1, it's 12.5 to 1, right? Because I was already burning 112, and it was hurting my soul every time I was pouring in another straight can to a motor that didn't need it per se, but there was inconsistencies I was finding that made no sense compared, since the two motors were the same, other than one was 13 to 1 and one's 10.5. So we got it to put on the dyno to deal with. Apparently some stop testing in the sense of what these are worth. I'm curious to see. The Stinnett one's neat because it's got a turtled setup on the bottom of the throttle stop, similar to the inserts you put underneath the carburetor, without the stop. And I've heard lots of people say there's lots of horsepower, sometimes mile an hour in that design. Again, it's flow numbers coming through there, right? The stop inherently is problematic for flow through the carburetor, just because you've added another set of butterflies. You've added, it's not just a spacer. It's there's stuff in the way, so you get weird turbulences coming through. So I'm kind of curious to see what it looks like. I've used number one stop for quite a few years and successfully. Like, I'm not saying I'm getting away from it. The number one stuff's been, fantastic for our program, right? My record for what we've been able to do with it speaks for itself, right? But if you're not moving forward, sometimes you're moving backwards, right?
Yeah.
So
let's hit on that. Like, we're doing the tech stuff. I want to learn more for myself, obviously. Like I said earlier when I talked about Charlie, I want to learn more throttle stop racing. I want to learn more 90 racing. So everybody that's kind of listening to that, if you haven't paid attention to throttle stop racing or all that, what's a number one stop, right? What's that mean? And then, let's talk about how you're going to compare them on a dyno. What are you looking for? And how do you, let's go for that.
So the number one stop's a brand out of the U.S. Dead and Bear makes a throttle stop. So that basically the butterfly style. Just think of a carburetor with another set of butterflies moving back and forth, right? Vertically set up. I mean, there's lots of ways to kind of do this, but that's the traditional one, right? So, butterflies close, power comes down. That's where you see the cars come down off power, right? And kind of cruise along. Seems to have been the most popular way to do it. The number one stop is simply just a brand, right? That's a gentleman that he's been making them for quite a few years. He's teamed up with a few different partners like Gary Stinnett, who's, multi-time 90 world champion, carburetor guru. If you're in the 90 world, you're aware of it, whether you have his stuff or not. You know who he is. Very smart guy. He had some input on developing a throttle stop, and I guess they came to an arrangement. And they number one and Gary put together, and they branded a number one stop. And the type of thing you're looking for on it that is it's a horsepower race, because everyone wants to be the fast car if you can be, and if you're not, like I'm not in an arms race because I simply just I don't feel like getting into that whole fastest mile per hour. That's an expensive game to play. And for the amount that we do, it doesn't necessarily mean success. But you also don't want to give up. I mean, if you have a car that can go 152 mile per hour wise, like on off the stop, put a stop on the car, you're going to lose some power because flow numbers change, right? These are the aspects of it. So for a lot of years, the stop game was, how can we make it as consistent as possible? Then when the horsepower arms race kind of started through about 10 years ago, it's probably been the whole life of throttle stop racing. Everyone wants to be the fast car. Everyone wants to chase. No one wants to give up power. You spend tremendous amounts of money to build big motors and then put this throttle stop in to lose 25 horsepower maybe. So a lot of R&D went into how do we make the stop the least restrictive as possible, so we keep the horsepower, but then when we shut it down, it does everything we need to do where it flatlines the power to have a consistent cruise RPM, where the car is just kind of rolling along consistently. RPM's flatlined as it goes across, and you can charge off the stop to get your mile per hour back to go to 90 or whatever you set up for. So we throw it on there. I've only ever used number one stops, but just their standard stuff. you see these. We've done dyno work at FJ's Dyno, FJ Smith in Cayuga with some of our motors, and just by changing those spacers, right? And I guess anyone who's had the chance to put dynos or go to the track, as you insert spacers under the carb and the intake, there's the different heights, moves, torque curves, a lot of things of that. I'm curious to see what some of this turtling on the inside that changes the flow numbers will do. I'm looking for horsepower. In fact, what I'm looking for is the least reduction in power with a stop on. If you can build a motor with 825 horse and you put the stop on, you're down to 815. Well, I would like to have 822, 820. Like I want the least amount of loss because without it now, I've got that mile per hour, I've got that ET. Turn the stop off, you're back up a little bit too, right? But that's what we're looking for. So I'm curious to see what it comes out at. It's there's a lot of similarities in the top side of it from what I have with my number one stops that I'm using. It's that bottom side of what it's going to do to airflow, right? So we have a mule motor that we're going to put on, which is essentially a 427 that it's 12.5 to 1. It's iron heads. It's a kind of a baseline motor, to kind of break the dyno in, figure it out. I don't want to put a brand new motor on there and learn how to run a dyno and find out, well, that's what Runaway looks like and that's what 9000 looks like. Let's buy a new rotating, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But that's our game. Oil testing. I spent a lot of time at PRI going from one oil booth to the other. And one of the ones I'm intrigued by is liquid moly. If you're familiar on Elite, you'd have heard Justin Lamb talking a lot about liquid moly oils. And for those of you in the automotive world, like you might be familiar with it because it's used a lot with a lot of the European motors. VW, they have all the oils that meet like the specs, various oil specs, right? And they've started dabbling into racing, and there's been some conversation on, how consistent some of these oils are, and just the qualities that oil brings to the general automotive world works pretty good in drag racing. So they have like a 5W50 oil. We run 20W50 all the time, non-synthetic, but it's worked well. I want to throw that in a motor and see what that does. Right? See what those numbers look like. See what the repeatability looks like. Right? So there's a couple things to touch on there when you get talk about like the dyno aspect of it, but like the throttle stop specifics, like we're just looking for horsepower. I just want to see the least amount of drop off as I can because you build it to have it, and then you plug something in the middle of it that could cause it problems. So
takes it all away. Right?
Absolutely.
Exactly. For the oil testing, a lot of that you're strictly looking at restriction. Correct? Yeah. Kind of through the oil pan and then restriction of the crankshaft smacking through the oil, right? Is that mainly what you look for on a dyno when you are testing different oils, or how does that look?
Well, I'll be honest, I don't know. I think I'm looking to learn how to learn a little bit with this, right? We haven't spent a lot of time on dynos over the years. It's been something that we've done loosely here and there. Truthfully, mostly with my brother's motors. And we've learned a ton. It's pretty incredible. And it's backed up some of the stuff we thought we were doing, but again, just never did that with the motors in my cars. But I don't know what I'm looking to learn other than what happens if we do this, and what happens if we do this. When we were down at PRI, had a conversation with some notable super stock racers, right, and some smart guys who built fast cars, and they'll tell you flat out the fastest oil I've ever run is Shell Rotella 15W40. And I was thrown by that, right? And had some friends up here tell me the same thing. Like, what do you run for motor oil in your super stock car, right? When you're running like all the time, right? 15W40 Rotella. Diesel oil? Yeah. T4, just throwing it straight in there, right? And so it's like, it's the fastest the car's ever gone. And I just looking at them sideways going, okay, well, I'm running 20W50 other than the weight difference, right? That's what we're talking. We talked 15W40. Is it just that's a thick oil still? So what do you mean it's the fastest oil you've ever had in? So I guess some of our testing, we're looking at doing is like, what does this mean? Right? What's going on here? Right? Because, it's, bracket racing isn't always about an arms race, right? No, you don't have to be the fastest car. But is it satisfying when you put something on there and all of a sudden it makes like 10 more horsepower than you thought it was going to, and you're that much faster? And if you can find consistency, right? And that's another angle is I've heard like how many pulls can you make within that specific horsepower range? How consistent can you be? I've heard fuel testing can be like that. Fuel company that the new one out of the US, they've got posts talking about, endorsements of this was the most consistent fuel on a dyno, right? And I read that and went, I never thought about that.
Exactly.
We're used to going to the racetrack and seeing what consistency is. Never thought that on a dyno I could find or look for consistent pulls. I mean, if it's pulling
Mhm.
within a certain amount of horsepower every time, consistently at the same temperature, that's got to mean something, right?
Yeah, you
So
take one more variable out of your combination, right?
yeah, yeah. So there's a lot. I'm excited to learn about things that I never thought I'd be able to find out without having to go to the track
Yeah.
and make pull after pull with the varying air conditions, track conditions that you've
Mhm.
got. I mean, if you're looking to do horsepower testing or engine testing or consistency testing, there's like off the top of the head 10 different variables that can affect you right immediately. Right, track goes away a little bit. Was that pass slower because of what we did, or was the track just not as good as it was 20 minutes ago?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So
So we've been watching whenever I go to like Mike and Vicky's, I end up hanging out in the basement with Mike. He's got YouTube on all the time. Big lover of YouTube. In case you weren't
yeah,
sure. Mike Ogilvy, big lover of YouTube. We watch so Steve Morris race engines. He does a lot of, you know, more of the very high powered stuff, more of the drag week stuff,
yep,
ridiculous. These guys are making 4,000 horsepower on the dyno out of these engines, right? But
yep,
he does a lot of really cool informational videos on there walking you through his process for finding different ways to make power, right? And then not that it's all about just being fast with what we're doing, but being efficient,
yep,
right? Having your engine run efficiently. There was something that he was having issues with on, I think it was one of the Pro Charger turbos or whatever. He'd get to a certain amount of boost, and his belts would start slipping off the tensioner that they were running on this particular unit,
yep, yep,
right? But it's just something that you would never find
yep,
just driving the race car,
yep,
right?
yep.
Like it's so cool the different things you can do and experience and really try out. So what I really want to do and what I'm very excited for, if it all does work out for us, I have my engine at D&D. Obviously, we broke in a year and a half ago now. It's been a while. We were waiting on parts, wrist pins, not
Yeah,
just like we're waiting on pistons, but wrist pins
yep.
that go in the piston, help it move around. So if all goes well, that will be back. And that's what I'll
Nice.
be using. So I'm upgrading that, going from 565 to a 598. Uh, I've talked to you about it, obviously, but for everybody not paying attention, I really want to take that to Andrews. I would love to play around with that on the dyno and just tinker with little things, whether that's with different things with fuel, carburetor. I would love to try gas in it. This, you know,
Yep.
and then as you talked a little bit of the fuel company, fuel factory that's coming out, and just compare them, right? Like they have the F18, F16, different things that you need for it. And then so many things you also learn on the dyno is if you're even running the right fuel.
Yeah.
For one, a lot of
Yep.
guys have no idea they're just putting stuff in there,
Yep.
you know.
Yeah.
And I've
And
learned a lot about that this
that's one of the
winter.
things I picked up on too with talking to we've switched brands over the years, sometimes by necessity because stuff comes and goes. Like we used to use
It's
Renegade.
different living where we live, right? There's only so
Yeah.
much you can get
Yeah.
in Canada.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Like sometimes it's this is all we can get. Sometimes we have choices. It's there's good years and there's bad years. But
Yeah.
we made a fuel change years ago to a different brand. And I'll say like we went from Renegade, which I used and I thought it worked good, to a different brand, and it didn't work. Like I had struggles, and it I ended up moving to a different company again, right? And came back to a consistency with it and was happy. But like I was amazed because it was a 112. They were all 112 octane. There you put the check sheets up and again, the dyno probably would have told us a bunch. And I mean, this is like maybe that privilege of we'll have one, but I mean, the amount of money we've spent dynoing with Ian's motors in the big picture things really wasn't that much.
Hmm.
Like compared to putting this in a car, hauling that car to the track, finding a rental day you can go make 8 or 9 runs, which that's a lot of runs on a test day because it's not a 12-hour day. Like it's a 6-hour window. You need to have your, stuff together to go do that. But at the same time, we learned more in 3 hours on a dyno than I could learn in 2 days renting the track.
Yeah.
From an engine performance standpoint or consistency, I think we would have learned a ton more. I'd have found that fuel issue without having to spend 2 years of racing going, what am I doing wrong? What am I
Well,
missing?
when you're racing, there's so much more happening as
Yep.
well because you're racing,
Mhm.
right? You can't make those fine adjustments because, whether it is that you're nervous for the next round or if you are changing things and trying to learn at the racetrack during an event,
Yep.
all of a sudden it does something you're not ready for, and then you're out of the race.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. So then you're done. You can't, you're not allowed to make more runs. Now, yes, some tracks you can do test and tune stuff after, but
Yeah.
at a certain point, if you're at a big enough event, then you can't, right? Then when it's over, you're done.
Well, and
So
if you're,
that's
yeah, and
that's
even at that, like if you're not doing that testing right, like over the years, I mean, I've been to the track and I've been had the ability to go help folks. They're not testing right. Like they're going at
mhm,
this totally wrong, and they think I won't say they think they're learning. They're learning something. It's just they're not learning what they need to learn, and what they're
mhm,
getting is skewed a little bit, right? So sometimes even that, like when you go make that run later on in between rounds, unless you have a good idea of exactly what you're expecting to get and do it right, like even that can be left fieldish, right? You're still burning oil, you're still making wear and tear on tires and a whole bunch of other parts. So, not that on track testing is not valuable. I mean, it's valuable, but
absolutely.
there's stuff that can be found before you ever put something in the frame rails. If it's something that you can, if you have the ability to go do,
Yeah,
add a dyno, right? So I'm looking for that's hitting on the Morris side. So it sounds like Mike and my dad Dave are in the same boat because
absolutely.
Dave discovered that channel, and that's all I see on YouTube whenever
Yeah,
there's 5 minutes here or there. Because
yeah.
yeah, so
And it's cool the stuff that they do on there, right? It's
yeah,
just wild. And they're just going for it and throwing out these crazy numbers
yeah.
out of these engines, right? So, and you got to
What's
learn somehow, right? And that's what all they're doing. They're just burning it up and going for it.
Well, the
And then,
drag week stuff is longevity. I mean, like every bracket motor I ever built, if I
absolutely.
could build a bracket motor that would go 1,000 miles worth of runs, which when you go quarter mile or even eighth mile at a time, that'd be a ton of runs. They're building stuff to try to survive in the worst possible conditions that you can think of, in the sense of just driving around, then going to go
The
fast.
worst. Yeah.
There's applicable stuff there that goes, that's what I want in a bracket motor. Like they're still trying to make a ton of power, but they're not trying to make every ounce of it. They're trying to make a lot and make it survive forever. Or
Well, these guys are still doing, you
yeah,
know, for winners of drag week in whatever it is, the top class, right?
yeah,
That have been and usually are in the 590 range
yeah,
in the quarter mile
yeah,
and still driving however many, what, 1,000 miles or so,
yeah.
right?
Like
Like with that same end, like,
this is
and there's
pro
work
mod
and
like
there's this and that
power,
going on. Exactly.
and they're going to go on a 200-mile cruise. I'm like, and this is again, I'm speaking out of place because this is a world I don't exist in, but it's like I watch Pro Mod and Top Sportsman, Top Dragster, and the amount of work that goes in between runs. Because again, there's a lot going on there, right? I'm not trying to
Yep. Yep.
negate
Absolutely.
that, but like you watch Drag Week, these guys are towing trailers around on the car that they're racing to go. Even we're not talking about the 5 second cars. Even we're just talking about the 6, the 7, the 8 second cars.
Well, the
I
eight
don't
second card, right?
right.
In some of those classes where these guys are going 8 seconds, these are
Yeah,
in like 3,000, 3,500 pound cars.
yeah. Like the technology, and,
You know,
and again, I don't mean to go sideways on like tech talk, Tuesday here, but like the technology to make that stuff survive and go as far as it is the same type of stuff that I would love to look at and go, how do I put that in a bracket motor? Because that's the longevity I would love to see, right? The
yeah,
ability to deal with heat and not have breakdowns of parts or pieces, the consistency aspects of it. How do you make that better? I mean, even just how they make drive or valve trains survive
yeah.
in like the high end cars. Like I was floored I think it was a Steve Morris motor, but it didn't. I don't recall now. Like what do you lash the motor at in the morning before you go on a 200-mile drive? Zero. Excuse me? Yeah, yeah, zero. No lash. Well, how does that not die? Well, when that motor is at road temperature hot of 220 degrees, aluminum block, aluminum head grow, it's going to make 30 thou or 25 thou or whatever we need for lash. So it ain't gonna have no lash in the morning. It'll have lash
Mhm.
at mile number probably 50, right?
Yeah.
And you think about that going, that's astounding. And you look at the rest of the pieces. So there's neat. I've enjoyed watching those videos too. It sounds like Mike and Dave are in my end. Dave's the engine builder. I
Yeah.
take no
Yeah.
credit on
I
any of
hear you.
that. But there's neat stuff out there on that sort of world, right? But
It's cool, and that's the future, I think, of what we're doing, right? It's going to be finding stuff that is just straight up more reliable.
yeah, yeah, and that's the key because you look at. I mean, I think we're getting to that point, and maybe this again going off topic a bit, but with the costs of racing in general, and that's just the cost of life.
Yep,
It's not necessarily like cost of racing's up, but so is everything else, and that's where it's
that's right.
affected. The longevity aspect of stuff becomes that much more important, right? I mean, when the times are good and disposable income's great, or plentiful, it's easy to look at having stuff and replacing stuff. But when it's not, and times are tough, like that's where you really want to look at programs and look at stuff and go like, how do I make this better for the long term? Because I can't afford to do this every other year, like maybe I did 3 or 4 years ago when to talk about like the tear down, the rebuild, the checking it over, right? Not saying be negligent with your stuff, but just, we used to have a program where every 2 years we were taking motors out to go through them just because that, was where we were at. And the reality started to become, I don't need to. I wasted so many gaskets over the years, right? Over stuff that really didn't need to be taken apart, which made me feel good going to the next year. But what we took out of that was we've built a program with some longevity. How do we make that better?
Mhm.
Because now we're going to go maybe every 3 years to take something apart. And when money's tighter, you start to feel better that, okay, maybe we're on year 4. Things have looked good. The general lookover is fine. We've built a really good program that has long lasting equipment. We've stretched this dollar a bit further, not needlessly, but
Mhm.
properly, right? And
Yeah.
that's something we look at too, and we try to base it on, right? It's not necessarily how much power we can build. I think we could build a bunch more power with some of the stuff and bigger, but the platforms we have really work well. They've got good life, and that's saved us a bunch of money over the years, realistically, right?
Mhm. Absolutely. So it'll be interesting to see kind of where it goes. We will do a YouTube video, a vlog of everything going on when and if we do get the chance to head to the dyno and come see us. So that'll be really cool. Like I said, I'm very excited for that and for the opportunities that can present for us.
Yeah.
So we'll roll through now, starting to the end. It was good. We had a good talk. We weren't really sure where the tech talk stuff was kind of going to go,
It's such a
but
long list. It could be very dry. Like, I mean, I don't get me wrong. There was a lot of talk about what we were doing, but
yeah,
and not all of it can be interesting. And if you're not into building engines or finding that sort of stuff, that's
yeah,
maybe not up your alley. But yeah, there's a lot there. You can talk for hours about it too. Like
absolutely. Because there's so many ways to go with it,
yeah, yeah,
with engine stuff. Because you can talk, just strictly for how you make power versus fuel and carburetor to look at cylinder heads
yeah, yeah,
and the differences that you can go on from there. You know,
yeah. And we never even touched on converters and trannies and things like that. I mean, there's a
Yeah, because
whole
we just stuck to just strictly the power plant
yeah,
itself. And this also is something a lot of people do forget. When you show up to a racetrack and say, whatever, you got a, big 565, you got a lot of power, you got 1,000 horsepower, but the car's not going anywhere.
yeah,
Well, unfortunately, there's a lot that goes on between the engine and actually getting the car down the racetrack.
oh yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yep,
You know, so
yep,
there's so many different things, and I love it. There's so much to learn. There's so much out there, and a lot of ways that are different to think about it,
yep,
but a lot of ways that are just really the same idea, just kind of morphed
yeah.
into something else.
Yep, absolutely. Oh,
So
maybe we'll reserve another tech talk there and get to the middle part of the cars because we've got some things going on there.
yeah,
Both, well, you and
there's
I
a
will because
lot.
you've got a new motor that you're going to put in, right? And so we
Mhm.
talk about converters and maybe not so much transmissions, but there's a lot of service work. Just you build the right
Absolutely.
tranny, you're not doing much work to it over the work. So another day, we'll maybe get into the middle part of the car.
That's
We'll just
right.
break this down going front to back and then up top
Exactly.
to bottom, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly. So, says everybody knows, or if you don't, you should know. That is what it is. 2 weeks now, we have our Winter Rumble Practice Tree Challenge coming up February 4th. It's crazy how fast it's coming. I say this, I think, every time we're on here, but blows my mind. Some people, I've been talking to a lot of folks about it, really excited for it. It's going to be awesome. If you're on the fence about coming, not just because it's my event, but I really think it's going to be worth being there for. It's going to be so much fun, really cool, just to hang out, right?
Yep.
And there's so much good stuff to get. We have lots. I'm just going through the list because it is a large list. Obviously, doors open at 11, first round of 2. We are using pro pairings. If you have not heard about that, it's just a website makes a ladder.
Ladder generating setup. It's neat.
Yeah.
I looked into it when you sent me the link on it, and it's a heck of a deal. Like, it's a neat setup, right? I think slot car races use it. I know practice tree stuff, right?
Made for this. There are racetracks using it now. So one thing that it does make a completely random ladder every round.
Yeah.
And then you can select buys, you can do random buys. We're doing random buys the whole way through. So that'd be really cool. You can download the app on your phone, and we'll have that somewhere through the event. We're going to have a big screen with the ladder and showing everybody kind of where it's going. If you stumbled on that. I was reading the raffle thing. If you have not seen it yet online, Kyle Jessup is doing raffles for free entries into the event. We did one a few weeks ago now. Laura Shepard won the free entry in the hotel room. Tony McNeil and Drew Buckner. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at my phone to confirm yet since we started the show. We had 2 entries left in tonight's raffle that will be, I'm sure, drawn tomorrow. I haven't talked to him. He might do it tonight, but we'll do that. And then we'll do one next week going as well. Right now, we're just doing 50 spots, $10 a spot. You want in, jump in. It's not too bad, not too expensive for everybody. This will be a cash only event. There'll be a bar, big checks for the winners. I'm really excited for them. They look awesome. The hotel is booking up quickly. Use the code BTL to book it, or just say if you're coming for the Bracket Life event. Yep. If they figure out that on February 4th, the hotel's booking up for no reason, more than likely it's for the Bracket Life event. And something new we threw out today, we will be going to Denny's for Sunday morning breakfast, brunch, whatever you want to call it. It's just across the road.
Excited.
So it's going to be good. Like, Rachel she's not as big a fan as Denny's. I love it, right?
Oh,
love going there. It was usually better at like 1 or 2 or 3 in the morning. That's usually like the prime time for going to Denny's, but whatever you're into.
I don't know why. I always associate Denny's with racing. Like, maybe that's just because of how we always kind of raced and what we stopped, but why Denny's doesn't do more sponsorship in racing is beyond me.
Exactly.
I feel like it's the
Blows
backbone of
there
you go. Next year's, right? The Denny's
next year we're on it. Yeah, exactly. So here we got a list of free entries that are coming up at the Practice Tree event. The warm-up $1,000 winner will win a Bracket Super Tour single day entry to any $5,000 to win race in 2023. Main event 5K winner will get a 660 Sportsman Nationals Toronto Motorsports Park weekend entry, as well as, this just came up, awesome. This one's gonna be really cool. Photo of the race car from John Chambers Photography. John Chambers, if you don't know, haven't seen his work, unreal stuff.
Yeah.
Really good. I had to count in my head. I gotta say at least 5 or 6 pieces that John has taken photos of, of my cars, Rachel's cars, things like that, all hanging around the house. So it's really cool. It does really nice work. If you have not gotten your photo taken by John yet, opportunities to work something out with him, with whether there's photos that he already has, or potentially you go to a race that he's going to be at next year, and you can get it set up. For the finale, the $1,000 winner, Shaneyville Drags weekend entry to any race in 2023, as well. The bottom bulb brawl, $300 was added to the purse. We get $800 to win, courtesy of Chuck's Speed Shop. So, like, that's just for the winners.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We also have door prizes. Every entry equals 1 ticket into the door prizes. three-month,
Yep.
3 separate 3-month scholarships to the Bracket Racing Elite, 5 gift certificates from Portatree, an Eliminator Next Gen practice tree. Right, I got it hanging out handy for the practice.
There we go.
Eliminator Next Gen practice tree. When that, it does come with buttons, yes, not just the tree itself. Membership to Drag Champ Pro, gift card for performance parts at Ogilvy's Auto and Fleet Service, Super Pro and Semi Pro entry to the Speedy Auto event at Lustville Dragway. I'll look up the date on that. I'll have that when we get there.
Nice.
$100 tech card to any Grand Bend Motorplex or St. Thomas Dragway event. Gift certificates to TNT Motorsports and Snap-on giveaways. Now the exciting part to really finish it. This is the good one. So a lot of people have been talking about looking at the lights, how bright's the tree going to be, what bulbs we're using, this, that. So I have some solutions. First, right here, you get a hard time seeing. I got to turn it sideways. Dimmer switch. So we'll go up and down. So the bulbs on the tree will not be blinding you, hopefully. Right now, if you went and looked at those lights on that mini tree,
they're
like you're just
coming on at you hard. Yep.
Yeah. So I have the dimmer switch set up. Well, not set up yet, but it will be going on the tree, and then I'm going to do a YouTube video showing how we kind of did this and how we are doing it in case you wanted to do it to yours. If that is not enough to dull the light on the tree, we also have this here set up. Now get ready for it. It's going to get, there it is.
That's
right there.
For those just listening and not seeing this, Brandon just was eliminated by light. Just a bright UFO type encounter.
Ridiculous floodlight set up here. I saw it. I couldn't resist. I had to get it. So
you've put more thought into making this tree visible than and I hazard to say this because I'm going to get in trouble, than most tracks I've been to in my life. So
that is the plan. I want to make this tree as good as it can be for everybody to be as competitive as we can be. So that light will be on it all day.
Yeah.
Every round, that light will be shined out so it is not ridiculously glaring at you. It combats it a little bit, right? So for one, helps your eyes so you can see better, makes us all competitive, and then it's fair for everybody. So that's the idea. The last kind of piece to it that I'm really excited about, ridiculously excited actually, fancy new buttons for everybody watching, paying attention. These handles here, so first the mushroom button, just from Beyond No Race Products. That's what we have here. This will be what we use for the competition. Handles here, custom made by Jason Chatwood, the Machine Center here in Belleville. So these we will have those on sale at the event. He's going to get us like 10 sets of them. If all goes well set up, I'll have some buttons there as well if you wanted to get a button. If not, you can get your own. And then for the most part, they are threaded for the mushroom. I believe the smaller buttons are threaded the same. We've talked about like the 00 button. I'm not sure how you would mount it, but yeah, these things, wicked. So both buttons are set up. They are ready to go for everybody. So get ready for that. That's, that was the highlight of my day, was picking those up.
I would say I was excited when I saw them. So that's, I see there's 10 showing up there, right, to be for sale. And I think I've already spoken for one. I haven't said that officially, but I'd like to say that now. So
Absolutely.
There's 9 for sale now. 9.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. We just got a comment on there. Is it coming up? I missed it. I didn't click it. There we go. James Rutherford. How do I do this from Alberta? Well, James, I don't want to tell you what. A plane ticket, I don't know how expensive it is, but it'd be worth it for you.
Well, there's convoys coming out of Windsor, right? There's convoys coming out of London. I'm not sure what's coming out of the east when you get to Montreal and further. But I would say it sounds like there's a lot of people putting together funds to get down there. I don't know what a chartered plane is worth, but get a bunch of friends together in Alberta, get a plane ticket, get a plane, pull together. Maybe there's some cost savings there. Lots of airports in the GTA that you can get into, not just Toronto. maybe that works. Maybe that doesn't.
Yeah.
I can't do all the
Andrew's
legwork.
a big chartered flight guy. You need somebody's got to do it for Andrew. He wants the chartered flight to happen.
I'm just living in a bank account world. I don't have daydreaming all the time. That's all.
I hear you. No, James, you gotta message Travis. You gotta message Casey. Get the boys together. Get everybody loaded up. Come to Belleville for the weekend. That'll be fun. I'm excited. I can't wait. I hope it really does go off really well. It sounds like we're gonna have an awesome turnout, so it's gonna be a lot of fun. There we go. For anybody not seeing the comments, I hate to come down there and beat you in front of your butt anyway. Well, it happens. I've got my butt kicked in front of, from worse. If you show up, James, we'll do it. We'll just have a one-shot winner take all, me and you.
Grudge racing.
That's right, grudge race. If everybody paying attention, James Rutherford shows up, me and him, grudge race on the practice stream.
I missed this earlier. Roll back for maybe half a second here. Kirk Vanny on the 15W40 aspect of oils. Apparently I haven't been getting told the whole story. I don't know if you want to pull that up on the screen real quick, but apparently, the ones running 15W40 for those out there, apparently they're just running it 1 or 2 liters lower because it coats all the parts. So this is a viscosity thing. Key information I did not have in these discussions, apparently, right? So this is what we're looking at too.
Well, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. Hey, like these are the parts, right? These are the little things. They'll tell you 50% of what you need to know and retain the last part that's useful, right?
Yeah, all you know is that it's a faster oil.
That's apparently how you make it faster. Apparently wasn't the
don't
part
matter, but it's the faster oil.
That's right.
They didn't lie to you.
No,
they just didn't tell you the whole truth.
That's the thing, right?
But all right, guys. Well, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate it. Love that you guys are all here for so long. Like we said at the start of the show, 1 year, right? Yeah. 1 year of doing this, so it's cool. We'll keep it up. If all does go well, I'm hoping that it will. Next week will be the top 25 list of the best racers in Canada, coast to coast. So pay attention for that. It's going to be exciting. Tell your friends. Take a guess where everybody lands on the list, where they are. Tell me who should be number 1. Let's hear your opinion.
We will have a link for the hate mail that may come in after that too. So
that's right. That's right. Yeah. If you don't agree, then that just is what it is. But thank you guys. We appreciate it. Happy to have you all here, and we will see you all in a week. Don't forget, we're not skipping next week. We are doing it. And then if I don't see you on here, then I'll see you at the practice tree event.
Sounds good. We'll see you then.
See you.